Okay, so I am really thankful that Janae was here to help me and also to give me feedback, because that's something we want to have in practice for as tutors and directors at all levels, right? So, so I was curious how much of what I did is similar or different to what you've done over the years. My tutoring style definitely has changed over the years, and it has improved when I first started 5 years ago. I was still learning the classical model, and it was a lot more complicated and complex and everything, and this is kind of what I've ended up with as I've learned more about the simplicity of the classical model and just keeping it focused and working with kids of different ages. But what do you do differently or the same?
Well, wait, I guess
what you saw?
we can go in order. So geography was pretty much the same, the way you approached for the BCDarians, color coding and tracing, like actually pre-doing the maps. Was very efficient of time to do it for the little ones. And then with the older ones, you allowed them to trace. I think they're old enough. I mean, that's really what we did for geography too. And starting with geography at the table sitting was effective too.
Kind of help start the class and kind of settle everybody for a few minutes.
Yeah, and every week we started with geography at the table, and it was just everybody could come in and they knew where to be.
They knew the routine. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so geography was great. Next,
and you had mentioned when I cut the video, like that you would recommend doing more the vocabulary, the verbiage of show me, tell me, which is kind of the best practices. And I did not do that. And no, I'm glad you caught me on that. But that's
right. So at the end, when you were demonstrating geography, you were asking the kids, what is this on the board? For memory master practice, best practice would be, tell me, and then point to the location. Whereas,
so it's the same idea, but the verbiage is a little better and more concise.
With CC.
Tell me what this is, or show me on your map where this is.
Yeah. So that was the one thing from geography that I think would benefit anybody who ends up doing the memory masters along the way, and just to get that habit started would be the best. But yeah, other than that was the only thing with geography. But other than that, geography was great. Yeah.
And you'd mentioned for the timeline, so that's how I had been instructed to do it, and kind of do it incrementally, and that still counted as our 7 times, because a lot of the kids really know the timeline song so well. Like, it's hard to say, nope, stop, we're just doing this 7 weeks.
and you do it every year, and so for timeline, we've always done the motions, not stressing the motions, but the way I had done it was I would introduce each timeline card with the motion to the card in its entirety, and then go back through them 7 times.
Gotcha.
But I really liked how you built on it, and I felt like the kids maybe caught onto it quicker by building and repeating the beginning too, and then the building process I thought was more effective than maybe how I was doing it. So I really liked that.
And it might depend on the age of kids, like for little kids doing it step by step, maybe that, I don't know.
And I had to simplify for the little ones. I had to simplify motions.
That makes sense.
So yeah, I thought the timeline was well, and all the kids were engaged and participating.
And if I have an older class that like really knows it so well already, that at the end I might take the cards down and shuffle them up. But I try not to. For the timeline, I try to keep everybody kind of focused in, because I usually do that at the beginning, and so I don't scatter it around the room or anything. I just keep it focused right there.
Yeah. For my BCDarians, the cards became a distraction if I let them have access to them.
Oh, yeah, so not for the littlest ones.
So I never allowed my BCDarians to touch the cards or have them, because then I would lose their attention.
Gotcha.
So that was one thing that I had to keep those
makes sense.
from their little hands.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. They're valuable resources. So
English was good. I love the English. The kids got really involved. That was really good. English can always be tricky.
Yeah.
That was probably my hardest one to prepare for, was English.
I often try to do like voices or chants or like something to spice it up, but it can be,
Maybe as far as everything else seems like, oh, that's easy to come up with something. And then I think we moved to math. Math was good, and you did the skip counting. Yeah, I mean, there was a couple of times where you were doing the old song, and that's okay, because that's what we know. That's what we know.
Yeah.
For those of us who've been doing it through the previous cycles, but you still remembered it, which was wonderful. That
most of the time.
Yeah, but I mean, the math was good. I feel like math, when you start doing the 1 times 3, can take a lot of time. Skip counting, you can get through 7 times probably each number pretty effectively. And the kids were way more engaged once you started having motion to the skip counting song. You know, even just standing there, skip counting the song, they weren't as engaged. As soon as you had them jump and move, you could see their faces light up and that they wanted to participate and be there. So I thought that was really good as I saw the dynamic.
Good. No, that's good feedback. Yeah. And so, and I think we talked, one reason that I don't do that at the beginning is, especially for those that have never seen it before, I want to make sure that they at least heard it once, like without singing, and then heard it once with the song. Because I find sometimes when we get into motions, if you don't already know it, it's a little harder to pick it up because we're giggling a little bit or whatever. But that's a really helpful observation. Like, yeah, once you start the actions and the activity after they've heard it and sung it once or twice, then they perk up and like it keeps them engaged that much more.
Yeah, you built it great. I think the way we were building math was really good. And then we moved on to history, and they've updated the song.
I'm really thankful that you caught my mistake there, because even though there's a lot of freedom in how we present it, like I often will tell my students, it's like, hey, yeah, if you catch a mistake on my board, extra high five for you this time. So everybody pay attention and find if I've done any oops or sung an oops.
And that actually might keep kids more engaged if they're looking for, you know,
especially the older ones.
Did Miss Dunham get everything?
That's right.
But yeah, during the song, I was trying to, you know, not obviously let you know that you had sang the old song, you know, and that happens. I mean, that's going to happen. That if you've been here long enough, you know, with the new songs, it messes up. But I thought the singing is what we have always done. We would introduce it, we would read it through, and then we would play the music. So
I'm not a singer on my own. Sometimes I can remember it, but even for math or Latin, I'm like, I need help with this tune sometimes.
Yeah, and the kids pick up the tunes quick. So like if I can play the song, like I would play the song in class as well, like you had done with history, and the kids hear it so much better than people who are not musically gifted, like us.
For sure. And I was realizing that even though I made a mistake in presenting the current version of the new grammar, I realized also that me remembering the old song from 3 years ago is a testament to the fact that this works, because if someone older like us are remembering the old song, it works. We're remembering it. So.
Okay. I love the way you had done Latin. I think the kids really got it, because Latin can be tricky.
And
because it's so foreign. So I think by doing that little trick of the present actually really drew them in and engaged them. For Latin, I've never thought to do something like that, so I thought that was effective in keeping the class's attention.
Gotcha, especially like when they're doing it the second week now, because there's something we already done. And just so you know, that's not my original idea. There were some cues from last time we did it that I saw, like to help remember which one was which, and so I used that from a CC Connected idea and turned it into a motion. So it was not my original.
Well, that was really smart, because when I did Latin, we just I would play the song and go through it with the kids in class as a song. So I thought that kind of was a little bit. It definitely improved on the way I did Latin. So I did like that. And then last but not least was science. And the only thing I noticed with science is the way, you know, I've always done it, I've always heard it taught, is when you say what are some land biomes, the idea is to get the kids to say it back in a complete sentence. So you would say some land biomes are, and then you do your list. That's why it's in a complete sentence. And CC,
it's one of those best practices just for the kids to start thinking in a complete sentence as a response.
Yeah,
I have heard that before, and as I was preparing less than an hour ago, I'm really glad you caught me on that. Thank you.
This is the way I did my board, and if you listen to the CC CD and their tunes, I think it repeats it back that way. So on my board, I would do like, what are some land biomes, and I had to write out some land biomes are. Otherwise, I myself would do what you had done, because you had not written out
some land biomes are.
And that would have reminded you, and you did catch yourself later in it. You did say it. You did do it in this complete sentence. I think the kids were like, oh wait, now we're doing it like that. But it was great. I loved your motions to that. I always do motions for science because it's the easiest thing to do for science is to do motions. And I always got really good feedback from the moms and the kids when I taught, or when I tutored the science about them remembering it, you know, with the motions.
And sometimes I'm torn with motions, and there's a lot of great ideas on CC Connected, but if I'm adjusting it or making it up on my own. Sometimes it's what they are, like grass, and sometimes it's just to remember the word, like scrublands, you know, you're scrubbing it. So it's kind of a combination of just a memory aid, and sometimes it's actually representing what the word is. So
Yeah, but I thought science was good, other than just trying to train your brain to say, okay, let's try to do a complete sentence. But
that's helpful.
Overall, for you kind of putting this together,
Kind of last minute idea, but it works.
Yeah, I mean, like, this didn't take you all weekend. You didn't spend 2 weeks doing this and coming up with it. It was just kind of like the stick in the sand.
Yeah, and that's something that 5 years ago I definitely was still learning and still did all like the bells and whistles and get little things and all. And then I realized as I had more and more experience and got to see also some other examples, that when it got too much, it was just really hard to bring the kids back in.
Yeah.
And so the more like, so we did, I've learned to do activity right there, but we don't move like around the room a lot. We just occasionally will do that, but doing motions, but still kind of staying focused on the task at hand.
And I did
but still out of our seats and not standing. Sometimes we'll sit down for Latin or something
floor,
like
right?
that. Yeah, on the floor. Yeah.
That's how we always did it. So geography was the first thing at the table. And after geography, my kids didn't sit back down in their seats.
Okay.
Because then we're going to sit for science or art probably. So
it helps me just because it wakes me up even. So I figure it does the same thing for a lot of the kids. And if they start looking like they're getting a little mopey or didn't have good sleep last night, then we'll sit on the floor for a little bit.
Yeah. But that's how, I think as far as best practice for new grammar to understand, and we even had a tutor one time have geography on the floor, and so it really depends on the style, but geography was the only thing we really traditionally sat for. Everything else was up, moving, and so just as a best practice, I think in the morning, move them as much as you can, because they'll have, you sit during presentations, you sit during art.
Sometimes you sit during science, not always.
Yeah, science can be iffy, but art, I feel like is mainly sit, and then presentation you mainly sit. So if you can move them. Yeah.
No, that sounds good. And I know sometimes when my kids, a lot of times I would put their names on tape, like some masking tape on the floor if they are having trouble from being up, if I wanted them to stay. And so I'd be like, toes on the tape, and they'd snap back into it. But there's different ways, like if to help them get up on their feet, if they're have trouble or too close to their neighbors. One class I did have to spread out, but we were all standing and toes on the tape.
Yeah. Well, I never forced a kid to stand and participate. So like if a child was having one of those days and they wanted to sit, by themselves, as long as they were not messing or touching any other kids, I let them be, because I don't think they need the attention.
That's true. Yeah. And at the end of the day, we're not there to force them to think.
Yeah.
And I'm talking more like for kids who would like.
Oh, I know, right? See, that we're messing with somebody.
And then I'll be like,
messing
no,
with somebody. Yeah, you can't have them mess with the other ones, but the moms, should, for the most part.
Yes, and that was really helpful how you were, I don't know if it was seen on the video, but you were in the background doing it and, helping me stay on task too if need be, so.
I like doing the science motions.
Catching Beatrice from rolling around on the floor, so, thank you.
I thought it went really well for an impromptu new grammar.
Well, that's the beauty of the more simple I'm able to keep it, the less prep time it also takes. And that does just take a learning curve, like of finding out what works for you and for your class. And so there is a learning curve of trying a bunch of different stuff and finding what really works for you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the feedback.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And if I tutor again, I'll remember some of those tidbits that you wrote down. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll keep letting you know.
So I thought I would just give a quick tour of my board, and this is just how it was modeled for me and how I've always done it. I know there's a lot of different ways to present the new grammar, and you can do it right on the board in your room or carry it in like I used to on this board so I could do it at home. So I've got the timeline cards across the top, and you can see I tend to use different colors for each one. It just kind of makes it bright and engaging for the kids and helps distinguish each subject for me also as I'm tutoring, so I can remember kind of where each one is. I tend to keep them in the same places each week, and this is as fancy as I ever got on my board, and I honestly did not often even make the dates in a different color, or sometimes I would. Not always, but I would never get any fancier than this. And the only reason my geography is in different colors is because I was doing it for obesitarians, and that just I thought would help with the color coding and was simple enough to do. But I'd always write out the geography so the kids could see the names and see it written out as we identified it in the maps. By not doing it too perfectly or too creatively, it also gives the moms in your rooms that feeling of freedom that, oh, I don't have to be super creative or super fancy to be able to do this. And I always told my kids at the beginning, you know, if I made a mistake on the board, keep an eye out and let me know if you catch it, extra high five for you or something like that. And they always liked that bit of a challenge because occasionally I would have mistakes. And in some classes I would intentionally put a mistake for them to catch if they were like a master's class. But they always liked that little extra motivation to pay attention and see if I had any mistakes up there. All right, that's about it.